Have you ever wondered why some older adults choose to live alone, not out of loneliness, but because it genuinely makes them happier? Perhaps you've seen an elderly man reading by the window, or an older woman strolling calmly through the park alone, yet not lonely. On the contrary, they seem to carry a sense of peace and self-assurance that not everyone possesses. George, 75, lives in a small town in Vermont. After his wife passed away, he never remarried and rarely joins large gatherings. Each morning, he makes himself a cup of coffee, tends to the small garden behind his house, and occasionally drives to the library. When neighbors check in on him, he simply smiles and says, "I'm fine, and I'm happy." What's worth noting is that many of us associate solitude with sadness or decline. But if we look more closely, there's a group of older adults living quietly, slowly, and yet maintaining remarkable mental and physical well-being. Could it be that they know something we've yet to understand? In this video, you'll join me in exploring 7 key personality traits often found in seniors who choose to live alone, and why these very traits may be the reason they live longer and happier lives. If you're looking for a fresh perspective or curious about how an introspective lifestyle might be the key to a peaceful old age, keep watching. And if you find this content helpful, don't forget to hit like or share it with your loved ones. I'd also love to hear your thoughts. Are you living like George? Or have you ever felt afraid at the thought of living alone? Leave a comment so we can share together. Now let's begin this journey into the unique qualities of these individuals. Who knows, you might just discover that you already have them within you. Have you ever felt like you think too much? Not the kind of idle worrying, but those moments when your mind dives deep into the details of a memory, wondering why things happened the way they did. For many, that kind of thinking is exhausting. But for those who embrace solitude, especially older adults, it's simply part of how they live and make sense of the world. In today's fast-paced world, where people are constantly encouraged to believe that being busy is good, sitting quietly and reflecting has become something unusual. Society often treats silence as something to avoid, fearing it may lead to emptiness or loneliness. But there is a group of people who think differently. They choose to live slowly and deeply. They don't shy away from silence. They seek it because that's where they can truly meet themselves. Many of them, those living alone after retirement, begin to develop a special habit: introspection. They revisit the past not to feel regret, but to find deeper meaning in every experience, even the smallest ones. Old mistakes no longer bring them sorrow. Instead, those moments become the raw material through which they gain insight into human nature, the ever-changing flow of life and the fragility of time. They are not quick to judge, nor do they live impulsively. Instead, they cultivate calm, care, and subtlety in every thought. It is precisely this depth of reflection that gives them their remarkable clarity. Though they may speak little or avoid social gatherings, they are often the ones who offer the wisest advice. That's because they've given themselves enough time to reflect and enough space to understand. And that gives them a clear, purposeful way of living. Deep thinking isn't overthinking in a negative sense. It's the courage to look into what others often overlook. If you've ever felt lost in your memories, perhaps you're simply entering a new stage of awareness. Try writing down a few lines each evening about what you learned that day. Give yourself moments of silence, no screens, no noise. In that stillness, you may begin to hear a voice within, the one you've been searching for your entire life. And once that habit forms, you'll realize, living alone doesn't mean being lonely. It can be a deeply meaningful journey, one of reflection, understanding, and living more fully. There is a quiet strength that often goes unnoticed: the power of emotional stability. For older adults who choose to live alone, this is not just a skill, it's a way of life. They don't need someone constantly by their side to feel complete. They don't seek validation from others to know their worth. They find joy and peace from within. In a world where connection is often seen as everything, from family gatherings to endless updates on social media, someone who chooses a quiet, solitary life can easily be misunderstood as lonely. But in truth, there's a profound difference between being alone and being lonely. Those who are truly emotionally independent are not avoiding people. They simply don't rely on others to feel happy. That kind of independence comes from experience. They face loss, disappointment, love, and abandonment. But instead of shutting down emotionally, they've learned how to build a strong inner world. They are not easily swayed by the moods of others. When someone criticizes them, they don't break down. When a day goes by without a message or call, they don't feel forgotten. They've learned to befriend themselves, something not everyone knows how to do. And the wonder of it is this: emotional independence doesn't make them cold or distant. On the contrary, it makes them more magnetic. They know how to listen, but not get drawn in. They can share without unloading. They can love without controlling, care without expecting. That is emotional maturity, a depth that only time and silence can cultivate. If you've ever felt too sensitive, too easily affected by others' words or actions, try turning inward. Have you spent enough time truly being friends with yourself? Start with the smallest things: a walk without earbuds, a meal alone without your phone, an evening without the TV to write down your thoughts from the day. These moments don't just help you understand yourself better, they create an emotional safe space that no one else can touch. So the next time you see an older adult living alone, still smiling, still calm in any situation, know that it's not luck. It's the result of deep inner work, of self-acceptance, and learning how to heal from within. And if they can do it, so can you. In today's noisy and fast-paced world, where everything moves at lightning speed and our attention is constantly pulled away by notifications, advertisements, and breaking news, there's a quiet group of people who choose to live more slowly, not because they can't keep up, but because they've discovered the value of observation, an ability that many of us are slowly losing. Those who enjoy solitude often possess an exceptional gift for noticing the subtle. They pick up on the faint change in someone's eyes, a small new detail along a familiar street, or the slight difference in today's weather compared to yesterday. While others are swept up in the loud and flashy, they focus on the small things, the ones that hold the most emotion. This sensitivity doesn't come from studying. It comes from living, living slowly, living deeply, and living with full presence. They don't feel the need to document every moment because they have already captured it in their minds. They don't rush to share their thoughts because they're too busy noticing the things no one else is mentioning. Unlike the majority, they don't just see, they observe. They don't just hear, they listen. This makes them wonderful companions, not because they always have the perfect advice, but because they often understand what you need before you even say a word. Their keen awareness allows them to build relationships that are not numerous, but rich and meaningful enough to nourish the soul. In a society that demands instant responses, slowing down to observe is often seen as being out of touch or inflexible. But in truth, it's a sign of intellectual maturity. When you begin to notice the sound of the wind, the shifting light at sunset, or the way someone's voice softens during a phone call, you are living fully, truly present in the moment. Try spending a day just observing, without reacting, without judging. You'll see a new world unfold. Colors brighter, sounds clearer, emotions more vivid. And you'll realize it's not that life lacks beauty, but that we've been too busy to notice it. Older adults who embrace stillness understand this deeply. They don't need crowds to feel entertained. They don't need drama to feel alive. A quiet morning, a warm cup of coffee, a good book, or even a blooming flower on the porch. That's enough to fill their hearts with gratitude. And if you too start to notice more, feel more, you may be stepping into a new stage of growth. One where wisdom no longer comes from titles or accolades, but from your ability to see what others overlook. Throughout our lives, we meet countless people at work, in the neighborhood, through social circles, or even online. But at a certain stage, especially in midlife or retirement, many begin to realize a profound truth. Not every relationship is worth keeping. Those who choose to live alone don't necessarily dislike social interaction. They simply understand the value of discernment. They've been through superficial connections, empty conversations, and countless gatherings attended just to show up. After enough of these experiences, they've learned a vital lesson. Quality matters more than quantity. In a culture that encourages constant connection and open networking, someone who intentionally narrows their social circle is often misunderstood as being distant or odd. But for inwardly focused individuals, this is a conscious act. They don't want to spend their time on relationships that drain them or force them to be someone they're not in order to be accepted. Instead, they seek genuine connections, where they can be themselves, be heard, and share without pretense. This could be a longtime friend, a neighbor who respects their privacy, or even a pen pal. Few in number perhaps, but rich in depth. These relationships act like strong bridges between two inner worlds, quiet yet deeply warm. What's admirable is that they know their limits. They don't feel pressured to respond to messages right away, nor do they feel guilty for declining a social invitation. They understand that time and energy are precious resources, and they reserve them for those who truly deserve them. Not out of arrogance, but because they've learned how to love themselves. If you've ever felt drained after a social gathering or found yourself pretending just to maintain a shallow relationship, it might be time to reflect. Who genuinely brings positive energy into your life? Who makes you feel like your true self? Being selective with relationships isn't selfish. It's an act of self-protection and self-nourishment. And when you have the courage to step away from connections that no longer serve you, you may be surprised to find that the relationships that remain, though fewer, are the ones that offer real peace, a sense of belonging, and true connection. That's not isolation. That's refinement, a brave and loving choice for yourself. Something fascinating happens when people spend extended time alone. Creativity begins to bloom. Without the constant noise, without needing to constantly react to the outside world, the mind becomes more open. And in that openness, ideas begin to take shape. For older adults who prefer solitude, this isn't just a theory, it's a lived experience. Solitude, when embraced intentionally, becomes fertile ground for creativity. With no one watching or judging, you're free to try, to fail, and to try again without pressure. Many introverted individuals begin writing journals, painting, knitting, gardening, or experimenting with new recipes, not to show off, but for the sheer joy of making something with their hands and minds. The DIY, do-it-yourself movement and personal artistic pursuits are increasingly thriving among seniors. Many people in their 60s or 70s take up pottery, blogging, songwriting, or even video editing using their smartphones. They're not chasing fame. They're chasing joy and the freedom of expression. There's no one pushing them to be great, no expectations or comparisons, just the quiet satisfaction of bringing something to life from their imagination. Creativity in solitude doesn't burst forth in fireworks. It flows gently and steadily. A peaceful space, a soft morning light, a notebook, and a pen. That's all it takes to awaken inspiration. They don't need deadlines or stages. They only need time and space to be, rather than constantly do. If you've ever thought you weren't creative, think again. Creativity doesn't require you to be an artist. It could be how you reorganize your kitchen for better use, how you rewrite a letter to your grandchildren to express your love more clearly, or how you mix and match clothes to feel refreshed. All of it is creativity, and the less you're distracted by the outside world, the more this ability can grow. Try setting aside a few hours each week for a creative activity. No pressure, no goals. Write a few lines of thought, sketch a messy picture, and cook a dish you've never tried. Regardless of the outcome, the process will energize your mind, make it more flexible, and deep within, you'll discover a quiet, enduring joy. Living alone doesn't make a person rigid or cold. On the contrary, it opens the door to the truest forms of imagination and self-expression. And sometimes those small, gentle ideas become threads that connect you to the world, not through words, but through resonance of the soul. There's a common misconception about people who live alone, that they're more prone to laziness or giving up, simply because there's no one around to supervise or remind them. But in reality, many older adults who live alone possess a quality that earns deep respect: high self-discipline. Without the structure of a job or the responsibilities of raising children, it's easy for days to drift by without a clear purpose. But for those who embrace solitude, They understand one thing deeply. If they don't create structure for themselves, they risk losing direction entirely. So they begin with small things, waking up at a set time, doing light stretches, brewing a cup of coffee, and reading in the morning. These simple, quiet routines become the firm foundation for a grounded life. Their discipline doesn't come from pressure or fear. It comes from self-respect. They don't need anyone to remind them to eat well or keep the house tidy. They do it because they know that daily consistency is what keeps the mind anchored, especially during emotional ups and downs or when the world outside feels chaotic. In today's fast-paced world, seeing someone who lives alone yet maintains a structured, purposeful lifestyle is a clear sign of emotional and intellectual maturity. These individuals don't need to prove anything. They know they're living well, and that's enough. They may not carry a long to-do list, but they live by unwavering personal principles. No oversleeping, no reckless eating, no neglecting health. These are self-imposed commitments, and they honor them, not for anyone else, but for themselves. If you've ever found yourself slipping into inertia when alone, take a moment to observe those who live with quiet discipline. They're not perfect, but they understand that each day is a chance to build internal stability. And that stability not only helps them live healthier, it gives them a profound sense of confidence, the kind that comes not from controlling others, but from mastering themselves. Start by setting a consistent wake-up time, or commit to a small habit, a 20-minute walk each morning, a brief journal entry before bed, or 10 minutes of meditation. These seemingly simple actions, repeated over time, become the anchors that help you withstand the turbulence of the outside world. People who live alone don't rely on others to keep them on track. They build their own rhythm, a slow but steady pace, firm yet flexible. And it's this rhythm that creates a lasting sense of peace, one that many spend a lifetime searching for. When life quiets down, what remains is silence. And within that silence, many people discover something far beyond day-to-day goals, a spiritual connection. Not everyone who lives alone develops a deep spiritual life, but for those who choose solitude intentionally, this often becomes an inevitable destination, a depth that only stillness can lead them to. Spirituality here doesn't have to be tied to religion. It can be meditation, a belief in a force greater than oneself, or simply a sense of belonging to nature, the universe, or a purpose larger than personal ambition. Those who enjoy solitude often spend time with life's bigger questions. Why am I here? What truly matters? What am I contributing to this world, even in a small way? More and more older adults are exploring spirituality in their own ways, joining meditation groups, connecting with slow-living communities, or simply keeping a sacred corner in their home where they sit each morning to breathe, to pray, or to write down what they're grateful for. These moments are not loud or elaborate, but they carry tremendous healing power. Spiritual depth helps them face pain, loss, aging, and death with more calmness. Not because they are fearless, but because they have built an inner relationship strong enough to withstand what lies beyond their control. They understand that everything follows a cycle, and that life isn't just about what you accomplish, but who you become. If you've ever felt directionless or caught up in trivial daily matters, try setting aside a few minutes each day for yourself. No screens, no noise, no tasks. Just sit in silence and listen. At first, it may feel empty, but over time, you'll begin to hear an inner voice, gentle but full of guidance. Spiritual life can't be learned in a workshop or absorbed from a book. It is born from facing yourself, from moments when no one else is around, from standing before the ocean or gazing at a starry sky and realizing how small you are, and yet not feeling lost. Older adults who live alone and cultivate a rich spiritual life often carry a very special energy, calm, deep, and quietly powerful. They have nothing to prove. Their presence alone brings comfort and grounding to those around them. And if you are entering a quieter phase in your life, consider it an invitation to return to yourself, to what is most real, most profound, and most enduring, something the outside world can never give and never take away. Thank you for joining me on this journey to explore the 7 unique traits of older adults who choose to live alone. Together, we've looked into qualities that may seem simple on the surface, yet hold extraordinary power. From deep thinking, emotional independence, and refined observation, to creativity, discipline, intentional relationships, and spiritual depth. These qualities don't come from luck. They are the results of conscious choice, ongoing practice, and the courage to step into stillness to truly know oneself. Now, I'd like to ask you, where do you see yourself among these 7 traits? What have you already been nurturing, and what would you like to develop further? I warmly invite you to share your reflections or personal stories. I would be truly honored to read and connect with you in the comments. If this content resonated with you in any way, don't hesitate to click like or share it with a loved one or someone who may be on a similar journey. Sometimes a shared message can be the most meaningful gift of support and inspiration. I hope this won't be the last time we meet. In the coming pieces, I'll continue to walk beside you with quiet insights, healing stories, and life inspiration crafted especially for those in the rich and reflective season of life. You are never too old to begin living more fully, more peacefully, from the inside out. Because stillness is not the end. It is the beginning of a deeper, more powerful, and truly free life journey. Keep walking, even slowly, but steadily, because you deserve a life filled with both peace and purpose.